Hello, everybody. Hey, I'll be starting in just a few minutes. This is Linda. I'm just letting everybody in. I'm just making some juice, so hang in a second.
Oh, I'm off everything then.
Hello, everybody. Just need to waiting room. I'm have to try to figure this out here. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello, everybody. Let's see. I guess waiting room. It says there's one person in the waiting room. Admit. See? Okay. All right. Let's see here now. Can you guys see me okay? Oh, and make sure everybody, can you mute your computers so that way it doesn't interfere with you know, my lecture and anybody else. They get confused with noise. So the mute is just on the down on the left hand side. Okay. I'm just kind of getting all my notes ready here. Good morning, everybody. My name is Linda Kordich. Hang on just a second. You guys have so many more people here that are joining. Admit. Okay, there we go. Trying to figure this out. My name is Linda Kordich, and I am the author of the book called Live Foods, Live Bodies. I don't know. We have a lot of new people that are coming in today. I wanted to talk about this book. This is chapter 4 of the 8 series of our book. And I'm just going to go over briefly the first 3 chapters. And but before I do that, I want to give a little bit of my history. I don't know if, I'm sure some of you know my background. I was raised, I'm 66 years old. I was raised in San Diego by my mother. When I was 10 years old, we became vegetarians. And hang on a second, I've got some more people. Boy, it's really complicated. And then people really get upset when they can't get in, you know? I don't blame them. You know, we make time to be here. Okay, so I was raised as a vegetarian since 1965, and then I became a vegan in 1990, and I met and married Jay Kordich in 1981 in January. And I had a big juicing background as a little child. So I grew up as a vegetarian, especially a juicing vegetarian. And so when I met Jay in 1980, I learned, I mean, I felt like, wow, I could work with this man because I know so much about juicing already. Although I didn't realize I was meeting the master of juicing. Okay, this man was incredible. I lost him. Hold on, we have one more waiting room. There we go. There we go. Hi, Mary. I lost him in 2017. He was almost 94. And, you know, none of us are meant to live forever, but he lived an incredible life. He brought juicing to the world on television for many, many, many years, over a decade and a half. You might remember him as the Juice Man. And the reason why we call him the Juice Man is because he really was the Juice Man. I mean, when I first met him, you know, that's all he talked about. And he came into this world with a passion. And that passion was to teach people about the power, healing power, and restorative powers of vegetable juicing. And the reason why he taught for so many years, for almost 70 years, is because he had cancer in 1948. He was a professional football player. He became very ill, and he had heard about Dr. Max Gerson. And Dr. Max Gerson was a very well-known, renowned medical doctor who came to America. He's German, and he started treating people with juice therapy techniques. And Jay joined that program, and 3 months later, his tumor disappeared, and he spent 2 more years only juicing and eating vegetable broths in the evening. And he was very thin, but he wanted to make sure that his body was recovering and recuperating. So anyway, that's sort of our history. We sold millions of juicers, we sold lots of books, but this book right here, this book, Live Food Side Bodies, is really a culmination. Hold on a second, I have to let one more person in. Why can't I see that? Teresa. Okay. Hi, Teresa. Okay, so this book is a culmination of juice therapy remedies. Now, I know juicing has become really popular on the internet, and that's a good thing. The more people that learn about juicing, the better. But my job is to help teach you what people therapy. Oh, can someone mute their microphone, please? You guys, can you, somebody there has a microphone that's open? Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, so juice therapy is different than just juicing. Juice therapy is specifically designed to put one vegetable with one other vegetable, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of them, to create a synergy of healing properties that work together. Carrots are considered a carrier to all of these healing properties that are part and parcel to the leafy greens and the other root vegetables that we're using. And this is why we use carrot juice a lot. Now, carrot juice has become unpopular in the last 10 years. And I just can't understand it. As a juice therapist, I want people to understand that this is the carrier to all of the other juice therapy remedies. And if you read any of Dr. Walker's old books, that's Dr. Norman Walker, you'll see that all of his healing therapy remedies deal with carrot as the #1 juice. And that's because it is the carrier. It's sort of like, oh, I don't know, I can't think of the analogy right now, but it is the foundation to all juice therapy remedies. And so when I wrote this book, Live Food Side Bodies, what I decided to do was incorporate Jay's knowledge, because Jay is not a writer. He was not a writer. He was a lecturer and a speaker, and an incredible speaker. And I am actually going to give you a treat today and share a couple of minutes of one of his lectures with you. He was a incredibly highly inspired, passionate, driven, knowledgeable master teacher on juice therapy. And he didn't have time to write. He just wasn't a writer. And I was a thinker, and I was a writer, and I was an absorber. I like to absorb all of his knowledge, and then I would take that knowledge and put it into information and books. And I don't have one now because I just sold the last book, but his original book, The Juice Man's Power of Juicing, sold millions of copies in the 90s. And this was really his book, as sort of like a calling card, a coming out, so to speak, to Americans and people around the world. It was translated into 15 different languages, and to teach people about juice therapy. But he didn't write that book. We actually had our publisher hired a writer, and that was a whole nother experience, because publishers, they own that book and they decide what's going to be in or out of that book. And so that was kind of a challenge. So when I had the opportunity, I wrote this book with Jay's voice in mind and his knowledge, that incorporated blending living foods and vegan foods with juicing. Because we have found, and I have seriously been teaching over 40 years and been involved in juicing for over 50. And what I've learned in all these years, and Jay too, is that 100% raw food diet is not the kind of diet that we recommend. And the reason why is very, very difficult to adhere to. Now, if you have cancer, or if you have like some major problem with your body, then yes, we would highly recommend living foods, very light living foods, not like the pâtés and the heavy seeds and things like that. But I would follow Dr. Gabriel Cousens. It's Cousens, who is a medical doctor and an incredible teacher of strictly 100% living foods. And he has a healing center in Patagonia, Arizona. And I'm in Phoenix now, so I would like to go down there and visit them. They have a beautiful center down there that strictly deals with helping people recover from degenerative illnesses and illnesses and diseases. And let me qualify that so I don't get thrown off on YouTube. And that is that this is not a medical advice, or I'm not treating or anything like that. I'm just sharing my knowledge, and also that these therapies can and may help the body. Okay, so before I get into chapter 4, which is the power of enzymes, I want to talk a little bit about a few books that I think you guys might like. These are remote books. These are books that not many people know about. And sometimes when books become really popular, it's because the publisher's really pushing them. And the reason why is because the author has a big following and they want to make money. But sometimes some of the greatest information comes from more obscure teachers and obscure books. So I want to teach you a little bit about this book here called The Enzyme Factor. Okay. It's written by Shinya. He's a Japanese doctor. And he goes into depth about all the different kinds of enzymes there are and how to get enzymes into our body. And the other book that I really like is called Clean Gut by Alejandro. This is a very good book. This goes in really deeply into probiotics, prebiotics, enzymes. Let me see if we, oh gosh, I have another one waiting in the waiting room. You know, if I had somebody here to help me, it'd be so much easier. There we go, admit, okay. Hi, Karen, sorry, we're just in the middle of something. So this is a book that that I really like and that I think can do you well. Alejandro Junger, Junger. This really goes deep into the probiotics. And then I really like this book. It's called The Food Combining Bible. And can you see that, you guys? Okay, The Food Combining Bible. Hi, Jan Drives. And the reason why I talk about this book and I like it is because juice therapy is juice combining, just like food combining. I do really well on food combining. I don't do well on mixing proteins and starches together. I get constipated or like bloated and I burp, and it's just not good for me. And I think it's because I've lived such a pure diet most of my life. Juicing will definitely refine your palate, and it will refine your digestive system. Your digestive system loves juicing. Why? Because juicing is pre-digested. Fruits are pre-digested, as a matter of fact. And so when the stomach doesn't have to work to provide enzymes to digest the foods, what will happen is that it gets happy. It's just, oh, this is wonderful. It can go right into our bloodstream, no effort at all. But then let's say we eat a heavy meal the next day, you will feel it, especially if you've been on juicing for a while. So, and then the last book I wanted to talk about is called Nourishing Traditions. This is a really interesting book. It's not a vegan book. It's not a vegetarian book, but this woman wrote this book many years ago. And I actually have two. That's how much I liked it. She talks a lot about fermentation. Now, fermentation is going to be the biggest thing that's going to happen in our country in the next 5 years. Her name is Sally Fallon, Fallon. I highly recommend that you get this book. She's an expert on fermentation, so, things like kimchi, sauerkraut. And then she also discusses how to ferment foods in general and sprout, even sprouting grains, for example. So, and then the last book, sorry, there was one more book. This one, I love this book. And the reason why I love it so much is because it's esoteric and I have tendency.
What? It's not on.
Are you there? It's called Cellular Awakening. Now, and it's by Barbara Wren, W-R-E-N.
I have that book.
You do. Excellent. Okay, now, so this is an incredible book. It's definitely way far right, not politically, but far right, meaning it's sort of metaphysical, but I love it because I think in those directions. And I want to read you one thing that's really important, especially to the whole book that I wrote. It's just a one or two sentences. She says, if we want to release toxicity in the body, we need to gently support the roots or the routes of elimination that exist within the body. So what does that mean? What that means is that when we get ill or something big happens to us and we just don't know what we're going to do, it's either our digestion or we come up with a degenerative disease or we're just stressed out and we have anxiety, whatever it is, our bloodstream becomes polluted, our lymph nodes swell up, we become constipated in ways that really are difficult to unwind. We have trouble with our liver. So the best way to heal the body or try to heal the body is to find the eliminative channels in the body. And this is what acupuncture does. It opens up all the electrical parts of the body and opens up the flow. And that can take a long time. I have found personally that juicing is the fastest way to eliminate the toxicity, the buildup, the congestion in the body. And this is the best way, because if we go to a practitioner and they say, oh, well, my gosh, we did your blood work and you're low in this, you're low in B, you're low in E, you're low in essential fatty acids. So then they give us, $200 worth of supplements. That's not what our body needs right now. This is just strictly my opinion. My experience is that I don't do that. When I get backed up or if I get ill, I would start juicing. I would start fasting. I would start juicing. Or if you haven't been juicing a lot, then I would just start juicing more, like 64 ounces of juice a day, 32 in the morning and 32 in the afternoon, and drink that juice with a meal that's light, nothing heavy carbohydrate wise or protein wise, and then do that for a few weeks and you'll notice a significant difference. Now, if you have been a vegan or if you're eating more of a lighter food, I would go 5 to 7 days on the vegetable juices. Now I'm not a big, and Jay wasn't either. We're not advocates of juicing fruits unless they're hard, like hard pears or hard apples. But the juicy fruits, watermelons, the melons, the berries, especially with all those wonderful seeds. These need to be eaten. And they're 95 to 97% water anyway. And those mineral waters are really important to our bloodstream and to keeping our cells hydrated. And this is why we mostly juice greens and vegetables, and then we eat our fruits. Of course, we use apples with our vegetables because apple is the only fruit that is compatible food combining wise and juice therapy wise with all fruits and all vegetables, including greens. They're a neutral fruit. They're not an acidic fruit and they're not too alkaline. They're neutral. So that means they can cross both ways. Can go to the more acidic fruits and the more vegetable oils. Okay. So anyway, okay. And so I just want to, if you don't know who Jay is and you haven't had an experience of him, I want to play something that's very relative to this chapter on enzymes. And I have to get here to it's a lecture that he and I gave called Live Foods, Live Bodies. Gee, I know, I'm so unique. But it was part of our Living Health program. We have 5 CDs, 2 DVDs, and our book, this book here. We sell it as a multimedia program. And so I just want to play this one part to you, and I'm going to put the volume up. Hopefully you can hear it.
All the body's trying to do.
Here we go.
All during the ileocecal canal valve and everything else where you have your villi. All that body's trying to do is break everything out of the food you ate. And only the liquid part of that food can penetrate through the villi, to the portal vein, into your liver to reach your bloodstream. You see? Isn't it amazing? And that bloodstream of yours is going to feed every one of your 100 trillion cells. And that's why I say, become a vegetarian. The animal that is not a vegetarian has a very short lifespan, and they have the short bowels anyway. You see, the short ileocecal canal valve, and the food is expended and eliminated very quickly. You and I have 30 feet. Listen, I don't care what you think. And you may devour those steaks like I used to before I became knowledgeable, before I had cancer. And you may say, oh boy, I'm not going to give up my prime rib and all. What are you eating? You're eating a dead, rotting, putrefying animal muscle, which is a corpse. And where is the fiber? The fiber lies only one place. Fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, grains, and legumes, beans. You see, the animal's smarter than we are in retrospect. The animal ate the fiber. The animal, unless he's a carnivore, and they have a very short lifespan, the animal eats plants. The cow, they graze. The farmer goes out of its way to give them shorts and middlings. They're bran layers, they're grains, you see? Now, let me read something to you that I think is terrific, okay? The enzymes are produced by the glands from food elements, and good health is impossible when the enzyme-producing glands atrophy. This is what happens. The elements from which enzymes are produced are destroyed at 126 degrees Fahrenheit. You see, that's important. Starts at about 112. By the time we reach 126 degrees, all life of that food is gone, is dead. And you cannot create live cells in the human body with dead food. And like he said, you need much live food daily and raw live food in order to supply the glands with a reserve of these essential vital elements. You see?
Okay, so I hopefully you guys heard all that. Oh, it's so nice to hear his voice. I don't know if you can see back here or not. Can you see back there? I have a candle lit next to Jay's face. I think it's right there. Yeah, I always do that whenever I teach a class because he was just the most amazing teacher ever. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about before I get into the chapter is, I wanted to show you. You want to know what one of the #1 fruits or foods of all time for enzymes? So if you want to get more enzymes into your body, it is pineapple. So I am going to show you how Jay used to do this in the produce department. In the produce department of the grocery stores that we used to we used to go to when, of course, when he was alive. And he would take the top of the pineapple like this, and he would just twist it like that. Just twist it off, just like this. And if you were paying pineapples by the pound, you wouldn't want this because we've got so many because it weighs more. And he would always put the top of the pineapple next to the other pineapples and say, the juice man was here, you know. Anyway, there was many years where we couldn't even go to the grocery store. I mean, you know, there's so many people recognize them, and that was always kind of a funny joke. But the pineapple is an incredible fruit that is probably one of the most powerful fruits for bringing tremendous amount of enzymes to our bloodstream. And the core right here, this is where the core is, and it goes all the way down the bottom to the bottom of the pineapple. This is where all the bromelain lies. Maybe 80% of it lies. The most important, that's the bromelain. This is the enzyme that works so well in our bodies. And excuse me, when you go to juice it, you want to make sure and cut all the way around, you know, to get all this off. Now, what Jay used to do, he used to juice the entire pineapple, but that's because, you know, we only bought organic pineapples. But if you want to do that, because he believed the green in this part was really valuable, a lot of trace minerals in it. We used to soak it in really cold water with like 2 tablespoons salt and the juice from half of a lemon. And you soak it for 5 minutes, and that'll get all the fungus off. And it's a real dilute form of hydrochloric acid. It'll get all the fungus off and the dirt and all that. And then you just can cut it up and juice it. Or if you want to peel it, you can. You can even blend pineapple too, because a good blender will actually blend the core. And of course, a juicer is definitely going to blend the core to it. So I wanted to show you that little trick because I always thought that was kind of cute. Okay, and then the next thing is someone had asked me before the class started yesterday about how to prepare tofu. And I just wanted to just briefly say that the best way that we used to do it, and we didn't do it a lot because it's kind of heavy, but if you're coming from a heavier, more animal-based diet, this is a really good transition from a heavier diet to a lighter diet. You can take any kind of tofu, soft, firm, extra firm, and just crumble it up and put it in a pan and put some nutritional yeast, a couple of tablespoons of nutritional yeast with maybe 1 teaspoon of peanut butter. If that, I would do half. And then some salt and some spices that you like. Maybe you can put some garlic in there with some onions and just, stir fry it up. And that makes a really excellent tofu meal because some people just don't know how to cook it. And they make kind of great tacos too, if you wanted to do like a vegan taco, which I'm going to get into, by the way. The part 2 of our book is coming up in our next class, and it's going to be, I'll show you right now, we're going to discuss the power of living foods, why living foods are important, how to incorporate 75% of your diet into living and 25% of your diet cooked. Now, why do we do that? Because Dr. Cousins has proven this, I think. He's talked about it in his book, and he did have it studied, that if you have more than 50% of your meal that is living, it will help make the other 25% of the cooked food come alive. So all those enzymes that are in that living food can help digest that cooked food. And this is a really good way of transitioning. And the easiest way to incorporate more living foods into your diet, of course, is juicing and blending, but also by making super salads, which I'm going to talk about in our next chapter. Super salads are incredible. You have a big base of a green salad that's full of enzymes, all kinds of shredded vegetables, and then you can add a protein in there or a carbohydrate or whatever you want, but not both. Okay. So then the next part is how to build a living kitchen, which is all about appliances and tools that really support, and then the art of the salad, and then our 75-25 program. So that's the second part of this this book. So I want to talk a little bit about this chapter. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but this is the only chapter that Jay wrote. Enzymes are life's fountain of youth. You see that? What does that mean? The enzymes are the fountain of youth. Well, the more living food that we consume, the more juicing we consume, the more youthful we feel, the more alive we feel, the more energetic we feel. Have you ever noticed that after Thanksgiving dinner, you fall asleep? Well, yes, it's the tryptophan from the turkey, but it's also because we've overeaten, and the body, all the blood goes from the brain to the stomach, because the stomach is really going to be working hard to digest all that food, all the combinations of the food, the whipped cream, the turkey, the stuffing, and the salad and the cranberries and all that. It's just like, I'm bombarded. And that's why the heart pounds harder, because it's just working so hard to digest. So the lighter that we eat, the easier it is on our digestive system. And you know what they're saying now, our gut is like our second brain. So I can totally relate to that. And Jay and I would 100% believe that. So because I didn't write this chapter, I'm going to read from some of it because I want to make sure that I get Jay's voice down. And it's so important because, enzymes are like, you almost have to be like a scientist to understand, protease and lipase and amylase and all these probiotics that are important in conjunction with enzymes. So we have probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes. They all work in harmony together. And so it's so complicated, and I would never attest to be an expert on this. So I'm just going to read a few things to you because I want, those of you that don't have the book, I want you to hear this because it's really important. Okay. This is what Jay says. Absolutely nothing happens without enzymes. The immune system depends on enzymes to direct its functions. Enzymes are used by the heart, the liver, kidneys, and lungs. And if it were not for enzymes, your body would be no more than a lifeless pile of chemicals. Now, have you ever, done laundry, and the laundry says, enzymes, and the enzymes are going to get in there and eat away at all the stains? Well, that's what plant food enzymes do. They're like little Pac-Man. So this is why it's important that you either take, you can actually, this company, Global Healing, I really like this company. The owners are friends of mine. I'm not promoting it because they're friends. I'm promoting it because I really like the enzyme. And they're made from, the quality of their work is really spectacular, super high integrity, married couple. And this is a really good enzyme. It's a vegan enzyme, and you can take these with your meals. Personally, and I know Jay was like this too, we would drink vegetable juices with our cooked meals. And the best vegetable juices to drink with cooked meals would be carrot, spinach. 75% carrot, 25% spinach. This will really help your digestion. And if you have trouble with your digestion, let's say you're in small intestine or your large intestine, you either have Crohn's disease or whatever diseases, that are bothering, or colitis or anything like that, a lot of gurgling, a lot of flatulence, a lot of diarrhea, or blue spells. Sorry, I don't mean to be so graphic. But hold on just a second, someone else wants to come in. There we go. So if you're having small intestine, large intestine troubles, the best way that we have found this works from our point of view, from a juice therapy point of view, is to do, I'd say, Jay would say 50-50. We don't really like to use too many dark greens in our juices because they're better assimilated when they're in smaller doses than you are when you do all greens. If you drink a bunch of dark leafy greens, your kidneys are going to freak out and your thyroid gets a little unbalanced. So 50%, but in this case, 50% carrot, 50% spinach. You do that 16 ounces twice a day. And then the next day, do 32 ounces twice a day, and stay with that for a week, and you will see a big difference. And maybe if you've really had trouble, then I would suggest doing this for a month, and then also eat lots of live foods as well. Not super high fibers meals, because the colon can't handle it. That's why juicing is so vital to people with colonic with colitis and issues like that. Okay, so then the next part of the book says the fibers lose their magnetism through the heating process and become devitalized. Did you know that? When we cook our meals too heavily, especially when you're doing things like over a pressure cooker, or you're super heavy duty frying, or super deep cooking, boiling, it actually distorts the fiber in those fibrous foods that you think are going to help your small intestine and large intestine. So you have to be careful about that. So your natural enzyme bank account. We are born with a fixed amount of enzymes, a kind of personal enzyme bank account. Those who exist on an enzyme-less diet of cooked, denatured, processed foods want only spend their body's precious enzymes reserve. On the other hand, those who regularly consume fresh juices and living juices, which are loaded with enzymes, make regular deposits onto their body's enzyme bank account, and thereby avoid unnecessary disease and premature aging. So now, I don't know this to be true. I would have to defer to Jay on this. But if we are really born with only a fixed amount of enzymes, imagine what happens to us when we become 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. No wonder we're not assimilating our foods. They say once we reach 60, we're only assimilating 10 to 20% of the foods that we're eating. It's sort of like we're overfed but undernourished. You know what I'm saying? Undernourished, meaning like we're not absorbing these nutrients. This is why it's so important that we get our parents to juice, and our elders to juice, and our grandparents to juice. And even if they're not juicing, you can go over and help them and turn them on to it. Like my mother and father live in San Diego. This is where I was raised. And they are both 88, and they live in a large home on a couple of acres of property. They have their own garden. My mother is a great vegan cook. And of course they juice every day. And so this is our heritage. This is what we want to, as human beings, we're not meant to live forever. I remember saying that earlier in my lecture, but when we start to get over 50, we start to think about, oh, wow, I wonder how long I'm going to live. Well, just look in your refrigerator, you can find out, like, okay. Food really helps us. Juicing superiorly helps us as we age. And Jay's parents lived his dad lived till he was 104. His mother lived till she was 99. And he taught them how to juice every day. Now, interestingly, Jay died a couple of months before he turned 94. And why was that? He actually had no disease at all, but he had a leak in his small intestine that he got from when he had his knee replacement. He had to have his knee replaced when he was 85. And they didn't want to operate on him because he was older, but they knew he was really healthy. And after that, he just was never the same. And we are assuming that the drugs that they had to give him, during the knee operation, must have interfered with his small intestine. So he died of a slow blood leak, and nobody detected it. It was really strange how that happened. And so he would have lived a lot longer had it not been for that. And I take responsibility for that. I should have known. But I saw that his stools were dark, but I was also making massive dark green blueberry smoothies for him, So I just assumed that was because of the color. So it was all meant to be, was not meant, we only have so many breasts in this world. And, but I wanted to just kind of give you background on it. Okay, so I'm going to go from my notes here as I want to talk about how do we get more enzymes into our diet? Well, we already talked about you can supplement. I'm not sure how effective that is, but let's say that you want to eat a cooked meal or you want to eat a large meal. Try eating pineapple 30 minutes to 45 minutes before you meal. And that will really, will give you a lot of enzymes in your gut before you start to eat. And the reason why I say 30 45 minutes is because you want to give the body a chance for that juice to get out of your stomach. And so then that way it's not interfering with anything. Okay, so pineapples are the #1 fruit with the most enzymes. Mangoes would be second, or papaya would be second. Mangoes, interestingly, avocados, which I never knew. And if I did, I'd forgotten. And then there's kefir. And if you're a vegan, there's so many different varieties of vegan kefirs out there, but kefir is a good one. But don't drink too much because it's very thick and very concentrated, okay? Kimchi and sauerkraut, miso and ginger. Those are great enzymes. Now, some of the great prebiotics, for example. Now, if you are going out to a restaurant and you're eating a heavily cooked meal, what Jay used to do, and interestingly, I never knew this until recently, that the best prebiotics, which is very similar to probiotics, by the way, these prebiotics are mostly found in garlic, ginger, and onions. And one of the things he was famous for, almost infamous for, and this happened like the first time I ever went to a restaurant with him. He said, "Can I please have a small dish of chopped raw onions?" And so he would take those onions and put them all over his cooked food because, back in the early 80s, it was really hard to get a big green salad. We'd have a salad, of course, but to really kind of mitigate the negative effects of the heavily cooked foods, you can either put chopped raw onions, which he loved. White would be best. White and red, and the sweet onions, they're okay too, but they're not as prolific in the prebiotics as the others. And then also the garlic is also good, but most restaurants don't have the garlic, and that can really wreak havoc on your breath unless you're both eating them. I used to eat the chopped raw onions with Jay, so it didn't matter if we both had it because you couldn't tell. And then another good prebiotic are dandelion greens. So if you're really low in enzymes and you feel like you can't digest your foods, right, make a big glass of carrot, celery, dandelion greens, and don't put more than 25% of the dandelion greens in there. First of all, it's a weed, okay, and that's really good, but it's also incredibly effective on the small intestines. The small intestine and the large intestine are going to go. There's this thing called the peristaltic wave that beats like a heartbeat, and that'll really get that peristaltic wave moving. And that's what, when that moves, that means we know we have to eliminate. So that the dandelion greens with the carrots and the celery is an excellent tonic to drink with your cooked meal. Okay. And then chicory root is another one. I don't usually use that. Now, a good probiotic would be things like sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented foods. This is why the Koreans are so healthy, you know, and the Asian culture is so healthy. Not talking about the Indian culture, but the Asian culture, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, they eat a lot of this. Actually, hundreds of years ago, we were doing it with mustards and chutneys and things like that. I mean, the Indians had a lot of chutneys, which is another really good probiotic. So those are three ways that you can get enzymes and probiotics into your bloodstream with your meal. Okay. So let's see, what else do I want to talk about? So what is a technical word for an enzyme? Okay, so an enzyme, digestive enzyme, plant food enzymes, speed up digestion and optimize chemical processes within the digestive system. Probiotics are living microorganisms that help balance the environment of the gut so that it can stay healthy and work efficiently. Digestive enzymes and probiotics are both necessary for a healthy digestive system. So if you're really having trouble with your digestive system, I would really suggest you read more. Start reading this book. Well, you can read from our book too, because it's a good chapter on enzymes. This one right here, you know, to get the probiotic, the prebiotic, and the enzymes into your meals, and learn a little bit about food combining. I'm really a big advocate of food combining. And you know who did a lot of food combining was Suzanne Summers. Now, I have never been a fan of Suzanne Summers just because, you know, she's not a vegan, not a vegetarian. Not that I'm judging, but I just, you know, I don't want to follow her when she's cooking, you know, foods that I don't eat. But one thing she did, which is really good, is she really brought in the whole concept of food combining. And not that she created it, of course, it's been around for many, many years. Okay, so on page 49, we have this thing called quick tips for better digestion, and then 12 steps to maximize your enzyme power. These are wonderful techniques. What I would do if I were you, I would take this and copy both pages and put them inside your cupboard doors so you can remember, oh, okay, how do I maximize my enzyme power to sustain vitality and longevity and good digestion? Okay, and we will sleep better too when our digestion is not off. So I'm going to go over these with you, but before I do that, there's a few tips here for better digestion on the page prior to that, which is also really sweet. And let me just talk about this because this is good. It says, okay, so number 1 would be drink a glass of freshly made vegetable juice. Okay. And chapter 2, we have a whole list of digestive green juices with carrot and celery that you can really have a ball with. You'll never be bored because there's like 20 of them. Okay. And then number 2 is make sure to soak your grains, beans and nuts 2 hours ahead of time, almost 12 hours before you use them. This will really help you digest all these beans and nuts and seeds so much better. You'd be surprised because there's an enzyme inhibitor. And that enzyme inhibitor, like say for like an almond has that covering over it, you know. When you soak an almond, what it's telling the life force, okay, we talk a lot about life force in this book. The life force is the divine intelligence that's living inside all of our foods, okay? All of our fruits, all of our vegetables, all of our nuts and seeds and grains, anything that's in the ground has that intelligence from the seed, the divine intelligence that takes those inorganic compounds and brings them up through the soil into the sky, reaching the sun, and converts it from inorganic to organic. And I'm not talking about organic food. I'm talking about, you know, inorganic compounds like we you know, in other words, we can't eat, you know, like a cup full of dirt, right? So those inorganic compounds become organic so the human body and animals can eat them. So these almonds, this enzyme inhibitor, it's like when you soak them, it's like telling the intelligence inside the almond that, oh, I need to start sprouting so I can start growing. And what happens then is the skin starts to soften and it comes off. And that's the inhibitor. And you want that inhibitor off so you can digest the inside of that nut. And that is the case in a lot of these nuts as well. Okay, so number 3 would be before dinner time, light a candle before you start to prepare your meal. And now we start getting more into the metaphysics, which is if you have an issue with food, or you're challenged with food, you overeat or don't eat enough, or you obsess on food, or you're stressed out because your whole family eats differently and you're really angry because you want to eat one way and they're eating another, and there's this conflict. Just what I used to do is I would just light a little candle and say grace and thank you, dear Lord, for bringing this beautiful food into my life. And I hope and pray that all of this food nourishes everyone that I touch, including myself. So that's sort of like my little prayer. And that's another good way to relax, let those stomach muscles relax, and be more open and receptive to this beautiful way of eating. And then number 4, if you're eating more than 25% of your cooked meal, which we discussed earlier, try chopping up either raw onions or fresh garlic and sprinkle them over your foods to help better digest the cooked meal. Well, we already talked about that, right? Okay, so here we are, 12 steps to maximize your enzyme power. Let's see, where are we? Okay. If for those of you that don't have the book, I'm just going to go briefly over it. If you do have the book, as I said, copy this and put it somewhere where you can look at it, because this is really good information. Okay, begin each day with fresh, ripe fruit and season, or your favorite fruit juice combination. My favorite is pineapple grapefruit. This is Jay speaking, which packs a real enzyme power punch. So let's talk about combinations briefly. So if you're going to do 32 ounces, I would say a half of a pineapple with 2 grapefruits. That's going to probably make anywhere between 24 and 32 ounces. And boy, is it good. Now, if you want some ginger with it to really spice it up, and that's also a very powerful probiotic. Sorry, I'm drinking carrot juice. Then you can do that, and it's really good. In fact, I made a post on Facebook the other day. I made a great smoothie, which was pineapple, pear, and ginger with some nut milk. Oh gosh, that's like a dessert. Okay, that's not for. I guess you could do it for breakfast. So remember to always peel the grapefruit before juicing, because the grapefruit. Oh, I think I have one here. Hold on just a second. Here we go. I have a grapefruit right here. This grapefruit is protected by a very thick skin, and we cannot digest the acidic oils in this skin. It's really not good for us. The oranges and grapefruits, pomelos, tangerines, never ever eat the skin. It'll burn the very sensitive lining of our stomach. And so, but what you can do is you can peel it. And so what we do is we just peel the grapefruit and leave as much of the white as possible, because in that white are incredibly valuable bioflavonoids. And what are bioflavonoids? They're sort of like super vitamin C. What is super vitamin C? It's like the higher level of it's a much higher level than ascorbic acid, but let's say rose hips from roses. That would be another thing. If you have rose trees, oh my gosh, you could take those rose hips when they dry and take them and grind them up and put them in your blender, and you could also blend a really good smoothie with that. But so you peel your grapefruit, leave as much of the white on as possible. That's where you're getting all these bioavailable bioflavonoids. Okay, the flavonoids are what you want, and they're prolific in grapefruits, pomelos, and oranges. Okay, now you don't see them so much in tangerines, because tangerines have pretty much a thin skin. However, you can do limes and lemons with the skin. Why is that? Well, there's a chemical structure that's different between limes and lemons and grapefruits and oranges. And that chemical structure is called L-limonene. And that means that you can or cannot, depending on what compound the limonene is in, is you can actually juice the skin from limes and lemons. However, I wouldn't do too much of it because it can be very strong. Okay. Okay, so the next one is later in the day, have something living, predominantly a vegetable-based salad with a glass of carrot spinach juice. Okay, let's say that you have your fruit in the morning and kind of getting hungry. You can always just do a nice vegetable juice a couple of hours later. I don't recommend drinking vegetable juice with eating fruits. They're not compatible. You've got acids and oils that are going to get inside the stomach. It will cause absorbability challenges, as well as sometimes it'll cause indigestion. Okay, then the next one is don't mix fruits and vegetables and juices. Well, we just talked about that, right? Or in your meals, because the enzymes are incompatible and may cause gastric distress. We know that. So the next one is restrict the amounts of liquids with meals. Too much liquid is going to dilute all those nutrients and compounds in your stomach that really need to be absorbed. However, when you're drinking your vegetable juices with a cooked meal, or even if you're doing 75-25 principle, which we're really going to get into in the next chapter, just drink your juice slowly. Jay was always a big advocate of that. Drink your juice and let the enzymes, the ptyalin and the amylase in your mouth right here, let those kind of get those juices really excited. And once they get a little sweet and you can feel them warming up, and you can swallow, and it really will help your digestion. Okay. The next one is restrict your intake of cooked food. We've already talked about that. And stay away from carbonated soft drinks. And we all know that. But the coffee is not good for you. I don't care what research comes out. Coffee is very toxic to the liver. It's not just acidic, it's acid forming. It will cause tremendous distress in your liver, your gallbladder. Will it help you think better? Yeah. Okay, if you're 20 years old and you're in college, then okay, go for it. But I wouldn't recommend doing it too much, because as all of us probably know, coffee is addictive. That's not to drink it at all. Okay. Then the next one is avoid refined sugar. We all know that. Don't eat cooked foods late at night. That's like our big thing. Besides the raw onions in your meal, the best way you can really drop weight, get your tummy a little flat, and wake up feeling energetic is never to eat anything cooked after 6 p.m. Okay. And if you work, that's different. If you work late, then you just have to figure out the best thing to do. But if you're at home and you come home from work, just eat your dinner as soon as you can, and stay away from any food except fruit. Like apples and pears are wonderful to eat in the evening because they're pre-digested, and then will help your bowels move easily in the morning. Okay. The next one is eat your biggest meal early, preferably around midday. Food eaten early in the day when you are more physically active can be digested better. There's an old saying, when the sun is at the highest in the sky, our digestive powers are their greatest. And now with intermittent fasting coming up, now just so you know, I wrote this book with Jay in 2002. That just goes to show you just how valuable these principles are. Now here we are in 2021, and now people are starting to talk about so many things that we share here, which just really helps me feel so good inside my heart, because when I was writing this book, I thought no one's ever going to love it, it didn't matter, because we wanted to share it with our juicing. There are so many millions of people that follow Jay with juicing. We need to come up with the Juice Man Eats kind of book, and that's what this was. But yeah, so when I wrote this book in the early 2000s, the intermittent fasting is very similar to that, because intermittent fasting says don't eat after 6 p.m. or don't eat, I think 6 or 7, or we used to say when the sun goes down, but in the wintertime, if you live in the far north, trust me, I've lived in Wisconsin. That's not going to work too easily. But then the sun is at the highest. So what does intermittent fasting talk about? Well, don't eat anything until noon or 1 o'clock. Well, when is the sun at the highest? Noon or 1 o'clock. So I think that's really beautiful. Okay, and then chew your food really well. We talked about that already. Make sure you chew your food well, get those enzymes in your mouth. This is the first part of your digestive process right here. The second process is when it's in the stomach. And drink your juice immediately after you prepare that. This is like so unpopular. People just don't want to hear that. But if you really want your enzymes to be alive and really working the best way possible, you want to be juicing and drinking your juices immediately. Now, if you can't do it and you just can't, you want to go to work and bring your juices, then I suggest that you get a thermos that has like a glass lining or a double lining that can actually freeze overnight. Put it in the freezer. And then in the morning, make your juices and put your juices in that thermos that has this double lining. The glass lining is the best because it freezes the easiest. And, lock it up and you're going to be good for 7 to 8 hours. It's really cool. So, okay, then drink your juices immediately after preparation. We talked about that. And the last one is When drinking digested juice aids with a cooked meal, always chew the first mouthfuls. We already talked about that. Okay, so that's the end of that chapter. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to share with you guys. You know, foods and juices aren't everything. It's, you know, our happy life, a joyful life is so important. It's so important to living a long life. You know, I mean, Jay was always a happy person. I mean, even when we were really struggling to get our juice man trademark back, and we were really having trouble, you know, getting Jay's work returned to him, it was just a nightmare. But, you know, he slept like really good at night, and he was always happy. And I was protecting him, of course. I kept a lot of that away from him. I'm more of a nervous type, you know. You know, I'm more high vibrational, you know, so I have to be careful with my own digestion and my own natural lifestyle. But he was always a happy man. You know, when he died, when he was getting, you know, like, you know, when we couldn't operate on him because it was just not going to work. The doctor said, you know, this man has like, his heart valves are like wide open. So that also has a lot to do with, you know, how joyful you are, and forget the stress. Dude, I'm telling you, man, if you have a lot of debt and you're stressed out or you're unhappy, that is so important to eliminate. We must be joyful and happy. We must have a relaxed life. Get rid of the debt, live a joyful life. Find someone you can help. Your neighbor, my neighbor next door is 85, and every once in a while, bring him over a glass of juice. And it just makes me feel so good, you know. These are the things that keep us healthy and keep our heart valves open and keep us happy. But what I wanted to turn you on to is a girl that I found that I normally never promote, you know, people in general. Yes, books and things like that, but a book is different. But this woman I really like. Her name is Ellen Welton. I can't believe someone's waiting again in the waiting room. My goodness. Okay. Anyway, hi, Nikki. Anyway, so her name is Ellen Welton, Whealton, and you can find her on Facebook. She is incredible. I love this woman. She is a kind of like a healer, I would say, but not like a metaphysical healer. She's just a typical American woman who teaches us about essential oils, which I love. I love essential oils. They're so important to our brain and our nasal passages, and it actually gets throughout our entire body. You're going to find out that this is going very popular. Nikki, can you mute your computer? Thanks. Yeah, so her name is Ellen Welton, and she teaches us about essential oils. And she also does these things called singing bowls. And it's these round crystal bowls that you hit, and it creates these incredible sounds that vibrate throughout the body. And put them on your stomach, and it can really relax you. You know, I met her. I didn't meet her, but I saw her on a TV show called the Jeff Mara. Jeff and then M-A-R-A. It's on YouTube. So I don't have television anymore. I just have YouTube, which is so wonderful. And the Jeff Mara show, he interviews people every day that have had near-death experiences or that have had experiences that have been profound spiritually. And she apparently had a brain injury and had this, you know, beautiful spiritual experience when she went into heaven. And ever since then, she just felt this really strong desire to help people that are ill. And so she uses these singing bowls and essential oils. And so I just really love her energy. She's a lover, and she's just special. So I want to share her with you. Okay. So I think that's it. And next class is really going to be fun. This is it. We make food come alive. Okay. We're going to be talking about all kinds of great recipes, and I'm going to turn the computer around, and I think I'm going to have my island here, and we're going to do lots of good juices and foods. And then the next chapter is how to build a living kitchen right here. This is so cool. That we're going to talk about all kinds of different kinds of great living appliances like the hydrators and juicers and blenders and gosh, salad spinners and ceramic knives and all kinds of great things that just really are going to support your living health program. Okay. And then we're going to get into recipes, and then the end of the book is resources and things like that. So anyway, so I think that's it. If anybody has me, I'm sorry I kind of went over today. I thought this would be a really short class because Jay wrote that chapter on enzymes, and I don't feel like I'm an expert in it, but hopefully I was able to convey to you that great little lecture that he gave that I shared with you. He's just an amazing teacher. I would highly recommend that you find, you can go to my website, juicemania.net, or you can take our Juicy Masterclass. That's right. Our Juicy Masterclass has over 800 pages of digitized information that I record, and then I weave in all of Jay's greatest lectures, videos too. So then, when we are inspired and when we're motivated, our lives really will change. And that's what, to me, that's the only way I change, is through motivation and inspiration, especially when I'm inspired. Like Ellen really inspired me. And trust me, there's no agendas here with her. I just want to share from my heart to yours, someone who has really touched me. Okay. So does anybody have any specific questions? If it's personal, you can always write to me at linda@juicingmasterclass.com. But did anybody have any questions?
Great job, Linda. You're so inspirational, so cheerful.
Teresa, you're always so sweet. Well, I live alone now, so I mean, you guys are like my family. I love you too. Okay, thanks, you guys. Love you loads. And if you ever need to talk to me, I'm always available. And I guess that's it. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Linda.
Bye.
Thank
Love
you.
all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.